Okay, let's get into this. Picture this. You're driving late at night, deep in the piney woods of Texas, quiet road. Suddenly you see something, well, something impossible.
Right, something huge, hovering, blasting fire, throwing off this unbelievable heat.
And then, as if that wasn't enough, military helicopters show up, like swarming the
Yeah,
things.
it sounds like pure fiction, but this was the reported experience of Betty Cash, Vickie Landrum, and her young grandson, Colby Landrum, December 29th, 1980.
And it wasn't just a sighting. This encounter, it left them with really devastating health problems, life-altering stuff. They even sued the U.S. government for millions.
A lawsuit that amazingly just fizzled out when unresolved.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into the Cash-Landrum incident. We'll look at, what they said they saw, the physical aftermath, that really puzzling military angle.
The legal fight, the skepticism, all the different theories, government tech, UFOs, you name it.
Exactly. We're going to try and pull out the key pieces from everything we know, just try to make sense of this incredibly compelling and honestly pretty frustrating mystery.
There are some surprising details, definitely a few twists.
So yeah, let's try and piece together what might have actually happened that night and why, even after all this time, people are still debating it so intensely. All right, so let's paint the picture. It's December 29th, 1980, evening. Betty Cash, she's 51. Vickie Landrum is 57, and she's got her 7-year-old grandson, Colby, with her.
Right, they're in Betty's Oldsmobile Cutlass, heading home to Dayton, Texas.
And this is like an isolated road, right? 2 lanes, dense woods all around, northeast of Houston. Pretty remote, just a normal drive home, you'd think.
Until it wasn't. They see this light first, way off,
Yeah.
bright. Their first thought is, okay, maybe a plane heading for Houston Intercontinental.
Makes sense. But then it gets closer, and not just closer, but much brighter. Way too bright for a plane.
Yeah, and lower. That's when they realize it's something else entirely. A massive diamond-shaped object just hovering there, treetop level.
Huge, they said. Like the size of the local water tower in Dayton. That gives you some scale.
And it's actively doing something, flames shooting out the bottom, this incredible heat pouring off it. Betty mentioned small blue lights around the middle, too.
And the movement was weird, wasn't it? Like, the flames would die down, it sinks a bit, then whoosh, flames blast out, and it rises up again.
Very strange. Now, Vickie, she was apparently terrified.
Yeah.
Immediately. She's deeply religious, a born-again Christian.
Yeah, told Betty, stop the car. And she apparently tried to calm Colby down by saying, that's Jesus, he will not hurt us. Quite a reaction.
Definitely. Betty, though, was described differently, more like mesmerized, just watching it.
But the heat, that's a major physical detail here. It wasn't just something they saw, they felt it.
Oh, absolutely. The car itself, the metal got so hot it was painful to touch.
And Vickie's handprint. She put her hand on the dashboard, and the vinyl was so soft from the heat, it left an indentation.
Right. Investigators pointed to that later. It was even shown in that HBO documentary back in '85. Solid physical trace evidence, seemingly.
Betty even needed her coat to open the car door handle again. That's how hot it got. Makes you wonder what kind of energy source could do that.
And just when you think it can't get stranger, the object starts to rise up, move away, and then come the helicopters.
Not just 1 or 2. They counted, what, 23?
23, yeah, in tight formation. Identify them as Chinooks, those big tandem rotor helicopters.
And Betty was adamant some had United States Air Force markings. That's a huge claim. Suddenly, it's not just a weird light. It potentially involves the military.
Right. The whole thing, from seeing the light to the object and helicopters leaving, lasted about 20 minutes.
Imagine going through that. The sheer confusion, the fear, the heat, and then the military showing up. It's just mind-boggling. Hard to process what that must have felt like for them.
And the effects weren't just psychological. The physical fallout started almost immediately. That same night,
All 3 of them.
all 3 started feeling sick. Nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, feeling incredibly weak. Their eyes were burning, like a really, really bad sunburn, they said.
But it hit Betty Cash the hardest, right?
Much harder, yes. Her symptoms just got worse and worse over the next few days. These large, painful blisters started forming on her skin.
To the point where she couldn't even walk.
Exactly. By January 3rd, just a few days later, she was hospitalized. Couldn't walk, losing patches of skin, clumps of hair falling out. It sounds horrific.
How long was she in the hospital?
Initially for 12 days, then she had to go back for another 15. And the doctors, well, they were initially treating her for burns.
Makes sense, given the heat they described.
But then they switched. They started treating her for radiation sickness. Her own doctor, Dr. Brian McClelland, he called it a textbook case.
And he made that comparison, didn't he, to Hiroshima?
Yeah, said it was like being 3 to 5 miles from the epicenter. That gives you an idea of the severity he perceived. She was later treated for cancer, too.
Wow. And what about Vickie and Colby? Were they as bad?
Not quite as severe, but still significant. Lingering weakness, skin sores, some hair loss for both of them. Vickie developed a cataract later on.
And little boy, Colby.
His eyes would get really red, apparently, especially if he went swimming. And his skin became much more sensitive to sunburn.
So this wasn't just a bad night. It had long-term consequences. Betty couldn't work again.
Never worked again. Needed constant medical care. It completely changed their lives. And that physical evidence, the documented illness, really sets this case apart from a lot of other UFO reports. It's not just a story. There were tangible, painful results.
Okay, so you have this dramatic encounter, severe physical consequences. Seems pretty clear-cut, right? But here's where things get a bit murky.
Yeah, the narrative isn't perfectly straightforward. For example, those first official reports they filed about a month after the
It's
incident.
34 days, yeah.
In those, Betty and Vickie apparently said the object was too bright to really make out its shape.
But Colby, the grandson, he insisted it was a diamond.
Right, he swore it looked like a big diamond. And later, when talking to Air Force investigators, Betty and Vickie did draw a diamond shape.
So that discrepancy, it raises questions, you know? Memory over time. Initial shock versus later reflection. It gives skeptics something to point to.
It does. But then you have the other witnesses. Their story wasn't told in a vacuum.
Right, the police officer,
Yeah.
Lamar Walker.
He and his wife, they were near Dayton, same night, same time frame, saw about a dozen Chinook-type helicopters, very bright lights. Didn't see a diamond UFO, but they saw the helicopters.
Okay, so corroboration for the military presence, at least.
And there were others, an oil field worker, another family nearby. They did report seeing a diamond-shaped craft around that time and place.
So it wasn't just the three of them seeing the diamond.
No. Reports suggest maybe 10 people in total saw the diamond object, and about 8 saw the helicopters. That adds significant weight, doesn't it? It wasn't just one carload of people.
Definitely makes it harder to dismiss. And then there's that weird detail about the road itself.
Yeah, the claim that the stretch of road where they stopped was, well, freshly repaved the very next morning, like super early, 6 a.m.
By who? Did anyone know?
That's the mystery. A crew was supposedly seen working, but later on, when investigators took core samples, they found evidence of unusual recent repaving. In Harris County, no record of any roadwork scheduled there.
Okay, that is strange. Why pave over that specific spot right after this event? It fuels the cover-up theories, obviously.
It certainly does. And then there's that other odd encounter Vickie and Colby had.
At the fair with the pilot.
Yeah, April 81. They claimed they ran into a Chinook pilot who mentioned being involved in dealing with a UFO in the area. But as soon as Vickie identified herself as one of the witnesses from December,
He clammed up.
refused to talk further. Now, some sources say this might have been a misunderstanding, that the pilot was talking about a different event from 1977.
So maybe confusion, maybe not. But it shows they were actively trying to connect the dots, find someone who knew something.
Absolutely. But officially, nothing. Initial checks with the Army, Air Force, no records of helicopters being dispatched like that.
Even though a formal investigation happened, Lieutenant Colonel Sarin.
Right. His investigation concluded there was no evidence linking the helicopters to the U.S. military. But, crucially, he also stated that the witnesses Cash-Landrum, Colby, and Officer Walker and his wife were credible.
Credible witnesses, but no military involvement. That's a contradiction.
It's the core puzzle, isn't it? How do you square credible testimony, multiple witnesses seeing helicopters, with flat-out official denial? It's incredibly difficult to reconcile.
So they're sick, they believe they saw a military craft, but the military says, nope, wasn't us. What do?
Well, they didn't just give up. They reached out for help, contacted their U.S. senators.
And suggestion was to file a formal complaint.
Yeah, with the Judge Advocate Claims Office down at Bergstrom Air Force Base. So they pursued official channels.
And that led to an actual interview with the Air Force.
It did, in August 1981. And according to Cash and Landrum, the Air Force personnel seemed to take them seriously. They even apparently suggested they get a lawyer to seek compensation.
Which sounds encouraging, right? Like an admission of something.
You'd think so. So they hired an attorney, Peter Gersten, who took the case pro bono, meaning for free. And they sued the U.S. government.
For how much?
A substantial amount.
Right.
$20 million, citing the damages, the health problems, the loss of livelihood.
Okay, so it goes to court. What happens then?
The government wheeled out officials. NASA, Air Force, Army, Navy.
Mm.
They all testified,
Yeah.
and the message was unanimous.
Let me guess. We don't have UFOs, and those weren't our helicopters.
Exactly that.
Yep.
Complete denial. No agency had such an object. No military personnel were operating those Chinooks on that night in that area. Full stop.
So despite the earlier apparent encouragement, the official stance was total non-involvement.
Total non-involvement. And without proof connecting the government or military directly to the object or the helicopters, well, the case fell apart.
It was dismissed.
Dismissed. August 21st, 1986. The judge found no definitive proof that the U.S. government was involved in whatever happened that night.
And what about radiation? Did they ever test the site properly?
They did, but not immediately. The Texas Department of Health sent their Bureau of Radiation Control out, but it was 9 months later.
9 months. Would anything still be there?
Well, they found no residual radiation. But, as experts point out, some types of radiation might dissipate or not leave easily detectable traces after that much time, especially outdoors.
So another dead end, essentially. You can really feel the frustration building for them, can't you? Sick, convinced the military was there, and then just denials and dismissal, no answers, no accountability.
Absolutely. But, with any case, this sensational, especially one involving physical harm, you're going to get skeptical voices weighing in. And they raise some important points.
Okay, like what?
Well, take the radiation aspect. Brad Sparks, an investigator looking at it skeptically, argued that the symptoms came on too fast for typical radiation sickness, unless it was a truly massive lethal dose.
But they didn't die immediately. Betty lived for 18 years. Vickie even longer.
Precisely. So Sparks suggested maybe it wasn't ionizing radiation at all. Maybe it was chemical contamination. He threw out hydrazine as a possibility. That's toxic rocket fuel. It can cause similar burn-like symptoms.
Okay, that's a different angle.
Yeah.
What else did skeptics question?
The medical details themselves came under fire. Gary Posner and Brian Dunning, for instance, dug into Betty Cash's actual hospital records.
What did they find?
They pointed out that the records apparently noted little, if any, hair loss when she was first admitted. And the initial diagnosis wasn't skin loss, but cellulitis.
Cellulitis. That's a bacterial skin infection, right? Quite different from radiation burns or massive blistering.
It is. Dunning went further, suggesting maybe the hair loss Betty experienced later was alopecia areata, that's an autoimmune thing, and maybe her other symptoms stemmed from illnesses she already had. He also claimed Vickie Landrum's only documented issue was the cataract.
So questioning the severity or the direct link between the encounter and all the reported symptoms?
Right. And inevitably, more controversial suggestions arose. Some floated the idea of Munchausen syndrome, basically, faking or exaggerating illness for attention.
That's a serious accusation. Was there any evidence for that?
It's highly speculative. There were unsubstantiated claims they might have faked burns with a sun lamp, but nothing concrete. It's more of an extreme skeptical hypothesis.
Were there any simpler explanations offered for the sighting itself?
Well, Stuart Campbell proposed a very mundane one, a mirage. He calculated that the bright star Canopus would have been visible, low on the horizon, directly down the road they were traveling. Could atmospheric conditions have distorted it into looking like a hovering object?
A mirage causing intense heat and followed by helicopters. Seems like a stretch.
It does seem to struggle with the other details, yeah. And another big point for skeptics is the evidence, or lack thereof.
The photos?
Yeah. Where are the extensive photos of these horrific injuries? Or even clear pictures of the melted dashboard imprint? Given they filed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, you'd expect more visual documentation to be presented.
That's fair, though you could argue cameras weren't everywhere in 1980 like they are now. Maybe they just didn't have one handy or think to document it that way immediately.
True, it's a counterpoint. But the lack of widely available, high-quality photographic evidence of the physical effects remains a sticking point for many trying to analyze the case objectively. It forces you to weigh that compelling personal testimony against the absence of certain kinds of proof. Leaves you wondering. And the story doesn't really have a neat ending. The mystery just persists. Betty Cash, sadly, passed away in 1998. December 29th, actually exactly 18 years to the day after the encounter.
Wow, after battling cancer for years, wasn't it?
Yes, and Vickie Landrum died much later in 2007 at age 83.
But Colby is still alive.
Colby Landrum, the grandson, who was 7 at the time, is reportedly still alive, still looking for answers about what happened that night.
So after all this time, investigations, lawsuits, still no official conclusive explanation?
None whatsoever. which of course leaves room for theories to keep circulating. Some are pretty out there.
Like Dr. Stephen Greer's idea.
Yeah, the ufologist. He proposed that the military wasn't escorting their own craft, but trying to pilot an actual landed alien craft. He suggested they were using some kind of portable power source that malfunctioned, causing the fire and radiation.
Okay, that's definitely an alien tech theory. What about more terrestrial explanations?
Well, the persistent one is that it was military, just something highly classified, an experimental aircraft that ran into trouble.
Like what kind of aircraft?
Speculation includes things like a nuclear-powered personnel carrier, maybe something codenamed WASP-2, though that's unconfirmed. The idea is it malfunctioned, and the Chinooks were a recovery team.
A black operation. Something so secret even regular military commands wouldn't know about it.
That's a theory. It would explain the denials, perhaps. If it was a top-secret project gone wrong, admitting it would be impossible.
And then there's the chemical idea we mentioned earlier.
Right, back to the hydrazine or some other toxic chemical leak being responsible for the physical symptoms rather than radiation from an exotic propulsion system or weapon.
It just leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does it say that a case with physical injuries, multiple witnesses, alleged military involvement can just remain unsolved for decades? It makes you question how much we really know or are allowed to know. And this is where it gets really fascinating, I think. The Cash-Landrum incident isn't just another blurry photo of a light in the sky. It's this deeply perplexing story.
Absolutely. We've walked through the encounter itself, terrifying stuff. The physical fallout, genuinely devastating. The legal battle, incredibly frustrating for them.
And the theories trying to make sense of it all. Secret government projects, alien craft, mirages, hoaxes. It covers a whole spectrum.
So for you listening, what's the takeaway? I think this deep dive really underscores how some mysteries aren't just abstract puzzles. They can have real, tangible, physical consequences.
Yeah, it pushes back against the idea that these things are just stories. It challenges our assumptions about what's possible and maybe, just maybe, what's being kept under wraps.
And you have to admire the persistence of Betty, Vickie, and Colby. Facing all that skepticism, the official denials, their own suffering, yet they kept demanding answers.
Their determination, combined with all those conflicting pieces of information, the credible witnesses versus the official denials, that's why we're still talking about it today. It wasn't just a blip, it fundamentally altered their lives.
Exactly.
So maybe the really provocative thought to leave you with is this. We live in an age with so much information flying around, right? But sometimes getting definitive answers, especially on things like this, seems harder than ever. What responsibility do we have then? To ourselves, maybe to each other. To keep asking questions, keep digging for the truth behind these unexplained events.
Especially when those events leave such a deep, painful mark on people's lives.
Right. The Cash-Landrum incident is just, it's a chilling reminder, isn't it? That sometimes the biggest mysteries aren't just about what we think we see in the dark, but maybe about what we collectively choose not to look at in the light.